Every year, I pick one running back that best fits each of these 5 categories: best overall, riskiest pick, do not draft, mega sleeper, and league winner. And every year, thousands of fantasy players thank me in week 17. I hate how confident I am in this one. Every time I'm on the clock early, I don't even scroll. I already know. It's Bijan. He's the best overall pick at running back, and the fact that it feels this easy low-key scares me. I've already taken Bijan first overall on a few best ball teams, and every time I close the app, I wonder if I guess Galaxy brained it. Because the numbers beg you to do it. 365 touches, nearly 1,900 total yards, 15 touchdowns. Running back won in 10 of his last 12 games, over 120 total yards per game down the stretch. It wasn't fluky, it wasn't game scripted, it was just winning football. Consistent, unflashy, every single week, and yet he still goes after Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in most drafts, sometimes even after Saquon. And that's where doubt starts to creep in a little bit. We've seen this story before. The guy with all the signs, we talk ourselves out of it because the wideouts feel safer. Now I'm stuck asking myself, am I early or am I just forcing it? And I don't know which one scares me more, if I'm being honest. There's this version of Bijan that I keep circling back to. Not the highlights, not the fantasy points, just the stretch, that 9-game stretch down the back half of the season, when everything quietly started to tilt his way, handled 73% of the backfield work, averaged 122 yards a game, scored 10 times. They just stopped rotating and let him be. And I keep asking myself the same question: did we witness the breakout or did we miss it? Because we moved him up aggressively in drafts. The 103 is no joke. And that's the part that I can't shake. I've passed on guys like Jonathan Taylor before, thought it felt too easy. Told myself efficiency was the problem, maybe it was the offense. There's a million different ways to talk yourself out of this one. So if you look back at some of the stats, sure, he was 3rd in rushing yards, 5th in receiving, top 3 in red zone touches, but here's where it gets me. Number 1 in yards created and number 3 in fantasy points per game. And he still left a ton of touchdowns on the table. He didn't score a rushing TD until week 6 and finished with 15. So what are we doubting? Is that even priced in? The fact that we'll have Michael Penix for the entire season, a competent offense? The Falcons were already a top rushing team last year in terms of success rate, and they hadn't even unlocked Bijan yet for most of that beginning of the season. So maybe I'm early, maybe I'm wrong, but if this is what he looks like before the offense catches up to him, what happens when it finally does? The thing that finally cracked it for me was hearing why they drafted Penix. The Falcons weren't desperate, they already had Kirk. They already paid him, but they still spent a top 10 pick on a quarterback, and when Penix was asked what excited him the most, he didn't say the weapons, he didn't talk about the scheme, he talked about Bijan. And that's what it hit me. The leap already happened. The only thing that didn't change was the price, because there's a reason he's going in the top 3. For some reason, I had this weird residue from the Arthur Smith rookie year, and it's harder to let it go than I originally thought, because if I really believe what I saw on tape last year or what the numbers are telling me, this isn't just a projection anymore, it's a correction. And the only question left is, how long are we going to keep pricing in this mistake of not taking him in the top 3, maybe not taking him first overall? At the very least, he's the best overall running back pick this year. So yeah, Bijan is still my best overall running back pick this year. And no, I'm not taking him over Jefferson and Chase every single time, but I'm also not acting like I have it all figured out. When I do go running back early, it's not even close. He's the one that I trust the most to anchor a build, handle the volume, and still give me the ceiling that I haven't fully seen yet. And maybe that's the line that I keep circling back to. I don't need him to be the 101 every time. I just don't want to look up in December and realize I talked myself out of the guy who was always right there. By the way, if you want my top 150 rankings for free, there's a link in the description. It's the same list that I'm using in every single draft this year, and if your league mates get it before you do, you're probably cooked. All right, that's my best overall running back pick, but what about the guy who might win you your league or detonate your entire season by week 4? Let's stay on categories here and talk about the riskiest pick. I keep wanting to draft James Cook. He's just there. In every draft, 4th round, great offense, looks like a breakout, but every time I hover over the button, something in my gut says, I've been here before. And the more I sit with it, the more I think I'm about to make the riskiest running back pick in the entire draft. He scored 18 touchdowns last year, 10 more than expected. That stat alone should have stopped me, but it didn't. Because when you zoom out, he finally has a breakout, elite offense. Josh Allen at the goal line still didn't matter. He still made the leap. That's what's messing with me. You see this draft slot and you want it to mean something, but the hardest realization I could come to was that it's already over. But then you peel back the layers, he wasn't even top 30 in snap share. They rotated him in at the goal line. And nearly half of his points came from touchdowns. Not workload, not targets, just scores. So I'm stuck asking the same question. Am I drafting a lead back with top 5 upside, or am I just hoping the most fragile stat in fantasy hits again? Because this looks familiar. I've talked myself into this before. Fast back, exciting tape, dream offense. But that's not safety. It feels a lot more like deja vu or something. Because I keep thinking I've learned this lesson already. But when you slow it down, you realize his usage actually went down last year. And if it wasn't for those touchdowns, we'd be having a completely different conversation here. You can't completely blame him for touchdowns. I mean, it's the Bills. They score a lot of them. The scary part, though, is the lower snap counts, the lower red zone usage, and the lower target count. That's not a floor. It feels like we're just putting money into a slot machine in some ways. Because even if the Bills score a lot, they change how they're scoring week to week. One week, it's going to be Josh Allen that captures all the upside. The next week, maybe Cook goes off. It's just really frustrating from a season-long perspective and a headache at this part of your draft that you shouldn't have to put up with. And every time I talk myself back into it, maybe Cook just is that efficient. Maybe this is kind of what modern running back ones look like, especially in offenses like this. But then I keep coming back to something that I told myself last year. It was a player just like this, because you're not necessarily buying the breakout anymore, you're buying the afterglow, and that's never a good place to be. And if it really is afterglow, this time, I'm not sure if the light's still on. What finally flipped it for me wasn't Cook's stat line, it was who the Bills trusted in January. Down by 3, inside the 5, season on the line, and they gave it to Ray Davis. Back-to-back plays. That's not a throwaway player, that's a hammer that they chose to use in the biggest moment. Then I saw the quote, McDermott called Davis a pro from day one. Talked about his power, his discipline, and his ball security. That's what this staff really values. Not the flash, the trust. And that's when it hit me. James Cook didn't do anything wrong. He just might not be the back they want when it counts. And if that's true, you're not drafting a breakout, you're drafting in the fallout. Every year we miss on a player and spend the next season trying to buy that closure. We don't want to be wrong twice, but that's not the reason to draft someone. That's just chasing ghosts. I really wanted him to be the answer, the one that I finally got ahead of, the one where I called it. But every time I circle back, it's not the highlights that stop me, it's the truth. The red zone roll is a little bit shaky. The third down security is even worse. And we're paying for the ceiling, paying that he can repeat those 18 touchdowns, especially at this spot of your draft. That's not a bet, that's a memory. And James Cook still might pay off, but what if he doesn't? Then this is the riskiest running back in fantasy, and I'm just not pressing the button this time. So yeah, maybe Cook's the riskiest pick, but you wanna know one player I will never draft, one that crosses the line from risky to the never again territory? I keep telling myself that I'm not gonna do it again, and then I see Breece Hall in round 3, and I swear my brain just goes foggy, like I need him to be the answer, but deep down, I know better. He's on my do not draft list for 2025. So here's the truth. We're not drafting Breece because of what he did last year. If you're still drafting him, you're drafting him because of what we hoped he'd do the year before. But if we're being honest, everything around him got worse. The OC called Braylon Allen part of the true rotation, not a backup. He's a part of the plan. And this offense, they ranked dead last in red zone scoring. They weren't bad, they were dead last. But the scariest part, it's not the context, it's that I keep ignoring it. I know the red flags, I've said the red flags, but something about Breece, it just makes you hope the film wins anyway. But I've watched this movie before. It flashes, the talent, the missed workload. I told myself it was the ACL last year, the line, maybe it was the play calling, maybe it was just Aaron Rodgers. And that 2022 Breece would come back, just give it time. And it's not like he was dominating volume. He had 20 plus touches just once over his last 6 games. He was even losing passing down work, which sounds completely insane given the talent that they have. And they just keep drafting guys. So to me, the role is starting to become a little bit of a problem. It's definitely a pattern. And the realization that I've come to is we have to start looking at Breece differently. A guy that's ultra talented, sometimes healthy, but stuck in a system that's not gonna let him be what he needs to be. At least at this part of the draft, because that's the loop. Just hoping that those big plays, that juice will save the day, even if the volume we need doesn't exist. But the thing that finally broke me was how quiet Breece was last year. No injury excuse, no shutdown, no headline. Just less. How about 10 games under 4 yards a carry? Because if this was any other player coming off a down year on a broken offense, about to share touches with a new back, we'd be out. But because it's Breece, and that's when I realized maybe it's not about him being different, it's us refusing to believe that last year already proved it. I said it at the start, I wasn't gonna do it again, and this time, I mean it. He's on my do not draft list, not because I hate the talent, but because I've seen this movie before, and I finally believe the ending. Justin Fields isn't gonna check it down. He's certainly gonna steal some touchdowns from Breece, so what does that leave us with? Once I finally digested that, it made it a whole lot easier to let go. So yeah, I'm out, and honestly, it feels kinda good. If Breece is the landmine that no one's talking about, then there's a sleeper that no one's even found yet, and his name's about to start buzzing. I almost didn't say this out loud, because the second I do, he stops being a sleeper, but Cam Skattebo is my #1 sleeper running back right now, and I don't think people understand how close he is to mattering, and fast. I hate how much I like this guy. He's a rookie. They didn't take him in the top rounds, so we have no pedigree. And that's usually enough to cross a guy off my list completely, especially in a situation like this. But here's what's messing with me. Brian Daboll didn't just draft him, He talked him up. The hands, the toughness, the versatility, and somehow already he might be the best pass blocker on this team. Tyron Tracy, he's still learning the position. Devin Singletary, we know what he is. So I keep asking myself, why am I ignoring the only back who fits what Daboll actually wants? I went back and looked at some of the touches, split out wide, slot routes, wheel routes, not just flares and dumps, but like real pass catching work. And the beat writers are already calling him a weapon. Not a body, not a camp filler, but a weapon. Because Daboll, even when this offense fell apart, quietly increased his running back target share last year. And that doesn't happen on accident. That's kind of the way he's wired. And now you drop in a guy who led all D1 backs in yards after the catch. Had the highest target share last year of any rookie. That's not a fluke, that's just his profile. The build's kind of weird. You watch him run, super compact, thick, violent, but it works. And I'm telling you, I've passed on guys like this before. These guys that just refuse to go down. This seems like the exact type of sleeper that you draft, you wait, and then he ends up being a huge part of your team in the fantasy playoffs. But the moment that I finally flipped on this one was that swing pass in camp. Did you guys see that? Skattebo catches it clean, stiff arms the linebacker, bounces off 2 more, and then finishes the run. They weren't just testing him, they were featuring him. That's when it clicked. He isn't the backup plan. He's the guy they're scheming in, the guy that already is trusted to handle pass pro and create yards after contact, and no one's drafting him. And if the Giants are bad again, and they will be, he's the back who benefits. Because he doesn't need game script, he is the game script. It's kind of nice with the guys you'd have to draft in front of him. But look, I know what this sounds like. Day 3 rookie from Arizona State on a bottom 5 team. That's my #1 sleeper. Skattebo doesn't need a breakout. He just needs the season to go how it always has in New York. The offense stalls, injuries hit, coaches scramble, and the one guy who can catch passes, block blitzes, and actually make the first guy miss, that's the guy who ends up mattering when you least expect it. And that's what makes Cam Skattebo the mega sleeper for my running back categories. The guy I can't stop circling back to. And if Skattebo's the sleeper that no one sees coming, wait until you see the back that everyone sees coming and still might be undervalued. I'm trying to be as high as I possibly can on Christian McCaffrey. He's my league winner, hiding in plain sight at pick 9. And somehow pressing drafts still feels like a risk. It's not that I don't believe in CMC. Part of me just can't shake what he did to us last year. His 2024 was an epic disaster. He played just 4 games because of bilateral Achilles tendonitis and the PCL sprain. 348 total yards, 0 touchdowns. But 2 years ago, he dominated over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, 21 touchdowns. And now he's going off the board at pick 9 overall, running back 4 on most boards. That gap between his peak and the injury, that's the tension that I just can't shake. Is this the rebound year, or am I chasing the shadow of CMC? So I'm kind of stuck between betting on the upside or fearing for another lost season. But if I'm honest with myself, Christian McCaffrey is still a league winner that I want on as many teams as possible. I'm not asking you to ignore what happened last year, but his ADP dropped from that coveted 101 to the 109. That gap feels like the market screaming and something that I kind of want to take advantage of. But you know what's really tripping me up? It's that CMC is fully engaged in training camp right now. So it's this weird tug of war. On one side, the man who can still dominate fantasy if he's healthy, and on the other side, the injury history that's haunted him more than almost anyone else in the league, definitely haunted fantasy players more than anyone else in the league after last year. So it's just that psychological toll that we all have now. Last year just completely burning a hole in our confidence. It's like watching that fighter who just keeps getting up. Are you gonna bet on the resilience that you've seen time and time again, or are you too scared to pull the trigger? I keep coming back to this because if McCaffrey stays healthy, that's a big if, this is the guy who just wins leagues by himself. Just every missed game chips away at that ultimate ceiling. So the question I'm wrestling with is, do you pay the price for the upside? The upside that we've seen many times. League winning upside, because it's the biggest gamble with the biggest payoff. And that tension is what makes fantasy football so damn fun. But at least this one, the moment where it really shifted for me, where I was finally sold, that I've been brought all the way back in, was listening to some of the quotes from Shanahan and Kyle Juszczyk. Shanahan saying that McCaffrey is as healthy as he can be, or Juszczyk just glowing about how explosive he is. That doesn't just feel like optimism to me, that feels like things they've actually seen. Like proof, I guess. That the guy who totaled over 2,000 yards and 21 touchdowns isn't some distant memory. He's here, and his draft stock falling isn't about talent, it's about fear. And that's not how you win. Scared money don't make money, right? Because people are scared that he's not gonna come back and be the same guy. That's what it comes down to. But what if the real story is that he's way ahead of schedule and ready to roll? Because if we're being honest, that's not really hope, that's kind of what we've been hearing all offseason. And if that's true, you're not just drafting a running back, you're drafting the player who can still carry a championship team. He's the league winner that's hiding in plain sight. And if you're not leaning in now, you might be letting the biggest opportunity slip away. Because the risk is real, but the opportunity is the whole reason we play. Look, I'm not pretending like this is a sure thing. Christian McCaffrey still scares me, but here's the thing. He's still my league winner. And at pick 9, he's hiding in plain sight. And I'm not drafting him to save my season. I'm drafting him because if he stays healthy, he's the one that can win it all for me. Again,